Welcome back to Watchbox Studios and Watches Tonight. I can see our live audience joining us from around the world already. I'm your host, Tim Mosso, and tonight we're jumping straight into it. Big talking points. The stealth release of the biggest change to the Nautilus 5711 since its debut in 06, Breitling's divorce from Baselworld, and the coolest watches that defy genres. Remember, keep me employed. There's no better place than thewatchbox.com to buy, trade, or sell watches. And when you want to sell, we pay fast, we pay cash, we make it easy. Global and 24 hours a day, thewatchbox.com. And I should mention, you can join me on Instagram, Tim_Mosso on Instagram, trying to hit 50,000 in 2019. But you can join me in person at Watch Time LA. That's right, from May 3rd to May 4th this year, I will be flying the flag for Watchbox at Watch Time LA. You've heard of Watch Time New York? Well, we're taking it over to the left coast at the Hudson Loft in Old LA. It's an old car dealership from the 40s and 50s. You will love it. We'll have 27 luxury brands, including the majors, FP Journe, HYT, RGM, Armand Strom, Romain Gauthier, Carrie Voutilainen, and yours truly will be moderating a panel on May 4th between the independent watchmakers and the audience at large. Meet the men themselves and try the watches on your wrist. Food, friends, and fun with me. Link in the description. Sign up because you got to be in it to have fun. Guys, join me in LA on May 3rd to 4th. Viewer wrist shots. Louis P. tackling U.S. tax day with his Ulysse Nardin Marine Annual Calendar Chrono and his Audi Good Taste in Watches and Cars. Roy S. Ruffsit in the Sierra Nevadas with G-Shock and Can-Am X3 XRS in the background. Matt F. showcases the caliber of his Grunefeld Remontoir 8 Second from Tim and Bart Grunefeld, the horological brothers of the Netherlands, and Tim M. No, not that Tim M. joins us from France with his Rolex GMT Master 2 Pepsi. Guys, send your pieces to see them on my Pixels Monday mailbag at thewatchbox.com. We have some industry news tonight involving Breitling and Patek Philippe. The Breitling news you've probably heard. First, Breitling has announced it will not exhibit at Baselworld in 2020. Breitling follows the entire Swatch Group and its roughly 12 luxury brands, many independents that have already fled to SIHH, and smaller brands such as Corum and Bremont out the door of the once mighty Basel Watch and Jewelry Fair. Breitling didn't blow up the building or burn the bridges on the way out the door the way Nick Hayek and Swatch did, and its officers mooted the possibility of a return perhaps in 2021, but I expect a Van Halen reunion and tour with the original lineup before Breitling returns to Basel, and according to Michael Anthony, ain't happening. Second, the big news, and the one flying under the radar, is that the Patek Philippe Nautilus received a huge mechanical overhaul apropos of nothing and with zero notice, the largest change since the 5711 came out in 2006. Launched at Baselworld 2019 in the 5212A weekly calendar, the 2019 caliber 26330 arrived over the weekend in the Patek Philippe Nautilus. That's straight from Patek's website. This is happening. Model references have not changed as of today. By the way, point and laugh that the Patek website still shows not just the old movement, but the pre-2009 movement with the Geneva hallmark. That's on Patek's website, but they are listing the 26330. I'm cool with the old photo, Patek, but please revert to a Nautilus bracelet with screw-fixed links. The new Hacking Seconds 26330 is a good start. Acknowledging our audience and our friends who are joining in. I can see Tom P. Nolan Reed joining in from Atlanta. Vegas Milgauss with his white dial is up. Abraham Gross, Tim Mosso's sunglasses, Fjord Prefect, Monsignor P, Squiggly Frank. We have BKAR 421, Andrew, Richard T, Christopher H. I can see we've got Ryan D finally joining us live, drawing watches from Vancouver, and Christopher Davis from Brooklyn, Bud D from Colorado, and Naresh Pape. Greetings to the watch world from Toronto. Guys, thanks for joining in. We have Edward Ledden of Sweden, but logging in from Sofia, Bulgaria. Thank you for joining me from Europe. All right, tonight we are discussing our main topic, category busters, the coolest watches without genres. Watch collectors have one common thread that binds us all. Each of us is a taxonomist. No, that's a taxidermist. That's more like it. Continuing, this hobby is obsessed with classification. We build our collections around one style or try to include one of each style or each genre or each function in our collections to fill our watch boxes. We have pilot's watches, watches for engineers and ingénieurs. We have regatta watches for sailors, racing chronographs with tachymeters for motorsports on sea, land, and air. We have dive watches, and not just dive watches, but we have dive watches for skin divers, free divers, apnea divers, and professional divers. And that's without acknowledging the extant but somewhat less segmented dress watch category. That said, there are some awesome pieces that defy all attempts to define them. Roll call. Starting with the Rolex Oyster Perpetual SkyDweller. Launched in 2012, this one dazzles and confuses in equal measure. The 42mm case looks and feels like an enormous Datejust. The watch is sporting, at least in the sense that it's 100 meters water resistant, which is high for a dress watch, but it's no sub, no sea dweller, it's no Explorer, Milgauss, Daytona, or Yachtmaster. In other words, it's not one of the application-specific sports watches of Rolex, and the dual-time annual calendar combo serves no apparent sporting purpose. And despite the name, there is nothing tying this watches to the pilot's profession. So there's nothing tying the SkyDweller to what's going on in the cockpit. The other two Rolex steel dual times, the GMT and the Explorer 2, hail from the world of aviation and geology, respectively. And I'll add that precious metal early models of the SkyDweller, especially with a full bracelet, were prohibitively expensive even to the wealthy. $50,000 buys a heck of a lot of Vacheron or Patek Philippe, even new. Takers were few initially, even as many admired the versatility of the GMT annual calendar combination. It was the 2017 stainless steel, or mostly stainless steel model, that changed everything with a more reasonable $14,400 retail price, roughly a third of the original retail of the gold model on a bracelet, as well as, for the first time, a wait list for the SkyDweller. The watch is lovable precisely because it does so much so well. It's glow-in-the-dark, swimmable, it's a 24-hour dual time. It's an annual calendar. It has a 3-day power reserve and a COSC chronometer certificate. There is nothing about this watch that doesn't fit in almost everyone's daily routine. This is the ultimate Rolex, I've concluded, for the Sky Miles aviator, not for the man in the cockpit, although it is a wonderful pilot's watch just to wear. Patek Philippe. Jumping straight into the chat box, I can see JPG from Tucson. We've got Christopher M joining from Rhode Island. Zucker Gill, howdy from Houston. And we've got a friend from Manila. We also have Fjord Prefix saying, the reduced contrast of the GMT disc on the blue dial, it looks even more like an inflated Datejust than at first glance. And I could see Eric Nielsen saying the SkyDweller has the straight stick hour markers. It doesn't have the Mercedes. 2 huge pluses over any sub in my book. And JBO Surf from Adelaide, Australia saying $50,000, let's not forget, buys a heck of a lot of FP Journe. Back to high horology and Patek Philippe, that watch right there, the 5961A. The first of these in steel broke cover at Baselworld in 2014 with a combination of curiosity and parody. We discussed the latter first. Yes, the dial of the white version, if we can go full screen right here, guys, but the dial of the white version does look an awful lot like a classical French mime. I'm not going to dispute, but the availability of a complicated Patek in steel that is neither a Nautilus nor an Aquanaut raised immediate interest in the model. And it is a hard piece to classify, as the original 2006 5960 was expressly designed as a dress watch with a precious metal case and delicate lines with foy or leaf style hands. The steel 5960 changed the game with a sports watch case material, a proper sports watch bracelet, and bigger, bolder hands and indices with more lume. All of a sudden, we were in business. But all 5960s remain 30 meters water resistant like a standard Calatrava, and there's no additional tachymeter or utility scale, such as a pulsometer, on the dial to actually change the functionality of the chronograph part of the watch. At the end of the day, the original dress watch platform has been modified to become a sporty watch, not a sports watch. Just like the Lexus RC Coupe is a sporty car, not a sports car. Patek Philippe bends genres with this model, but there's a lot to love. Automatic winding, a power reserve indicator, AM/PM indicator, flyback chronograph, annual calendar, especially the rarity, too, gotta love the rarity, of the 1-year -010 black dial model right here. These are among the hottest steel Pateks. No, among all steel Pateks, of all Pateks, period, in 2019. Do you need a genre to love this steel 5960 Patek Philippe flyback annual calendar? I don't, which is why I adore this piece, and it's one of my favorites from the House of Stern. Jumping into the box right here, we've got David Detour saying a very nice Patek. We've got Blazin Mark 1 saying he loves his 5170R. We've got Joe R saying Parallel watches thoughts. Well, considering Soprod is their manufacturer, solid movements in Parallel watches, but by pre-owned, they are value sinks from new to the pre-owned market. But solid pieces, the hardware is for real. And I could see Naresh Pape saying, white gold cream dial SkyDweller for me. Can't remember the reference number, but it's a dream. Good point. That's a model I didn't feature, but it's a lovable one, and you can get it in steel, as he mentioned. Okay, a Tudor we don't discuss. The Tudor Heritage Advisor. Does Tudor even want us to know about this model? I'm not entirely sure, and I can't figure it out. Despite launching in 2011, 1 year before the brand-defining Heritage Black Bay, the 42mm titanium steel hybrid alarm watch basically disappears into Tudor's back catalog, and that is a shame, because the Tudor Heritage Advisor is the most complicated Tudor ever made, with alarm on-off switch, alarm power reserve indicator, a date, and automatic winding. I'll also mention that it's a versatile watch with 100-meter water resistance and plenty of lume to see it in the dark, so it is very practical. A 2013 redesign added a very intense black dial model, and a 2016 third pass added this lovely, and I'm infatuated with it, cognac dial with matching strap. This is a dial color we need to see more often. The Tudor Heritage Advisor bears a name dating back to the 1950s, so its authenticity as part of Tudor's heritage is real. This is as deeply rooted as any Tudor Submariner. But despite catering to no profession, carrying too much bulk to be a dress watch, it's not a dress watch, and facilitating no specific sports activity, the complicated and costly Advisor could be rightly described as the stealth flagship of the Tudor brand. It's one of the most expensive, the most capable, the most complicated. But with prices surpassing $6,100 for a full bracelet Advisor, Tudor may have priced its most elaborate watch out of the roughly Tudor, Tag Heuer, Seiko, Longines market and price point that we generally associate with the Tudor brand. That's the sweepstakes, and I'm not sure $6,100 is in the game. But when considered, alternatively, as a different route compared to a Jaeger-LeCoultre Memovox, this genre-bending alarm watch suddenly looks like a real bargain, and they're a great pre-owned buy. Right here, Kevin S. saying someone should advise Tudor to discontinue this model and update the Heritage Chrono line. I disagree. I love the Advisor. I'm totally into it. And right here, Fjord Prefix saying the Advisor has an ETA movement modified with an in-house module. That's absolutely correct. And the complication module is the most exotic complication that Tudor has ever created in-house. Marco, hi Tim, first time I get to see you live. Mark, thank you for joining in. I really appreciate that, Marco. Jumping from Tudor back to high horology, we go from Patek to Tudor up to Vacheron Constantin and the Key de Lille in stainless steel. This is the story of a watch that launched into the deepest economic recession in living memory, face-planted and failed in its original and ambitious form, fell dramatically down market with revised pricing, and finally made good in its ultimate iteration. The 2018 Vacheron Key de Lille, we need to look back and remember, was a final volley in the industry's pre-recession clamor for easy money from silly people who wanted to be extravagant and one-up each other with what was on the wrist. Outrageous currency-derived anti-counterfeiting graphics created a chaotic dial that was as hard to read as it was to justify. It was a solution to a basically non-existent problem, as display case-back Vacheron Constantin counterfeits are very rare, and when you see them, they generally inspire laughs, not successful schemes. And it got worse, as initial prices were sky high, and a poorly conceived configurable case added to confusion, complexity, and cost. This was not the way to launch a new model in the worst of times. But moving back towards the best of times, we look back and recall just how bad things got. As Vacheron hard rebooted the entire line back in 2016 with a simplified array of options and a full stainless steel case. And 1 year later, the clean, simplified dial was joined by a crowd-pleasing blue dial variant, and this is the one to own. Look, it's pandering, it's trendy, it's voguish, but I still love blue on a watch. Reducing options actually increased collector interest, and one good design proved more compelling than the many cubist concoctions of the original models and offers, but all of the original classification confusions of the key to Leo persist. At 41mm with a blocky case and massive lugs, the key feels and looks huge on the wrist. It's over 50mm lug to lug. This is no dress watch. And I should also mention, at 3 ATM water resistance, this is not a sports watch either. Without any application-specific complication or added bezel, this cannot be construed as a sports watch or a utility-inspired professional model a la GMT Master. But at $15,400 in stainless steel, this new Vacheron is one of the most accessible points of entry to a manufacture movement with Geneva Seal pedigree and a point of entry into very affordable, new-bought Swiss Holy Trinity high horology. By the way, caliber 5100, manufacture, Geneva Seal, and 60-hour power reserve. It lives in a neither world between sports watches and dress watches, but you really care when the watch in limbo looks this good on your wrist? I like the fit. It's big, it's blocky, but it's fun and it's fabulous. Jumping right back to the box, Abdul has joined us. VC have a lot of mistakes. The more they learn, the better they get. I agree. That is a watch on the rebound. Angie asking, what is that? It's the key to Leo. It's the watch often mispronounced as the Quai de Leo. So, yeah, key to Leo. The QDL. Jumping from high horology to middle of the market, a watch that's near and dear to my heart, but always controversial. It's the Omega Hour Vision, technically part of the DeVille family. The Omega Hour Vision from the first 2007 model was a difficult piece to classify. It was a square peg in a round hole world. 41mm high-polished steel or precious metal, including full bracelet, the partially sapphire-cased Hour Vision fit the times, mid to late 2000s, flamboyant and irrational. If you don't recall those times, these were the era when this was considered really cool, especially in that color. And if you don't live in the US, that's a Hummer H2. Just type in on Google or Yahoo, Hummer H2 uncool, you'll see the memes. Now, jumping forward, Omega's 41mm high-polished bruiser was a dress watch by the standards of an era in which Audemars Piguet was resetting the bar doing this with sports watches. So if that's a sports watch, maybe the Hour Vision is a dress watch after all. But the times have changed. This is 2019, and Omega was left with a 100-meter water-resistant, amagnetic, borderline oversized three-hand model with a case as thick as most dive watches. As the global economy was scraping absolute bottom back in 2009, Omega decided the bulk of the Hour Vision, well, it might pass more easily if the watch were a complication, so a truly inspired annual calendar variant bowed in 2009, and that was the first silicone hairspring mainstream Omega watch. Today, the Hour Vision endures as a sort of relic from this bygone age, a different era, different times, not kinder and not gentler. Due to Omega's apparent propensity to add new models indefinitely without discontinuing anything, the Hour Vision remains buried in the catalog and prohibitively priced as steel Omegas go. $11,200 is jaw-dropping for this stainless steel Hour Vision annual calendar on a strap. And the availability of a factory leather NATO strap underscores just how hard classification of this watch and its genre remains even in 2019. That said, the hardware front and back is the business. These are epic pre-owned buys, and I like the blue annual calendar enough to make it my next watch, and you guys can hold me this. I'm homing in on my next watch and jumping back into the collector fraternity. It's going to be this, the MIH watch, or something like the Zenith Windsor Annual with the Palladium dial. Jumping into the box right here, we've got lots of friends jumping in, and we've got Vegas Milgauss, Anon, we've got Ted D, we've got Anna, we've got Zucker G, we've got Roype saying only 90s kids remember. I'm not sure what he's referring to, but Frank V saying, how about Omega Globemaster annual calendar? I like that watch too, but that's of more recent times. That's a borderline dress watch because it's part of the Constellation line, and the Constellation is a dress watch. Rob B, wearing his brand new Tudor Black Bay GMT. He has not even got the first scratch on the bracelet yet. The first scratch cuts the deepest, and it cuts twice. Once on your watch and once on your heart. Jumping right back into the chat and the topic. Okay, guys, Oris Ortelli A caliber 113. This is one that defies classification. 43 millimeters is way too large for any non-IWC Portuguese dress watch in the year 2019. This might have been a dress watch back in 2005, but the watch came out in 2017. And the Ortelli A caliber 113 clearly isn't one of Oris's aggressive pilot's watch or dive watches. Those lines are quite clear. And this, at 50 meters water resistant, is not an aquatic timepiece. All the same, cast off your reliance on category, and the 2017 Baselworld release has much to recommend it. How about a 10-day power reserve? Power reserve indicator with non-linear speed. It actually speeds up as it approaches the end. A complex calendar with day, with date, with week of the year, featuring pointer style indication, and of course, this is a timepiece that is robustly loomed with premium dial features that include plenty of applique, so the indices are not printed, everything is loomed so it's easy to see at night, and a rich sunburst surface that competes with the best in the business at multiples of the price of this piece. The caliber 113 is a manufacture movement by Oris, properly sized at about 37 millimeters to fill the caseback, display caseback, and nicely decorated for its price, which maxes at $6,300 for an Ortelli A113 on a bracelet. So the value proposition is there, and what you're getting for the money is stunning. Like the enormous Maurice Lacroix masterpiece models, this Oris is just too large to be considered a dress watch, and insufficiently spec'd water-resistant wise to be considered a sports watch. But unlike the excessively priced Maurice Lacroix masterpiece models, Oris and its equivalent similarly powered pilot models show just how dramatically IWC is gouging its Portuguese or automatic and big pilot's watch clientele, because these are like half price compared to those, and these are just as impressive. Okay, I should mention something about these category busters, and it's something we haven't addressed so far, which is that often they are real haute de gamme rarities, super exotics, like the extrovert offerings from HYT, that's the H20, and De Bethune, that's the kind of blue tourbillon, Milky Way. Basically, these are awesome pieces that serve no sporting purpose, and they're barely water resistant. Plus, it's hard to describe them as dress watches by any standards other than perhaps this attire. I think you can consider the HYT a dress watch if your suit looks like this. Now, I kid because I love HYT and De Bethune both. MB&F followed this path, the exotic watch you can't classify, with the 2017 HM7 Aquapod. Count the contradictions. It's called the Aquapod. It looks like a jellyfish. It's got a unidirectional rotating dive-style bezel, and yet it's only 50 meters water resistant, and it is no dive watch. Now that we've established a pattern of fabulous and fatuous absurdity, let me pigeonhole one specific brand that does this better than anyone, and does it from the United States, no less. The weird and the wonderful Devon Tread pair. The Tread 1 and the Tread 2. Jumping straight into watches that push the limits of, well, what a watch is, period. They push the definition of the word watch and our sense of what a watch should be. So trying to pin down the watch genre for these California-built beasts is almost theater of the absurd. And I could see Zucker saying that our vision is absurd. We've got a lively chat box. Jason Main, by the way, in the chat box from our own shop, in there answering your questions about prices and our watches. But let's talk about the Devon one more time, because although aggressive, large, techy, and bold in the very American sense that a Tesla Model S with ludicrous mode is bold, these are not sports watches. For one thing, the Tread 2 was the first water-resistant Devon at a whopping 1 ATM or 10 meters, and the original Tread 1 was rated to a pocket watch-worthy 0 ATM, no water resistance. Given the sheer size and microelectronics questions posed by this kind of timepiece, and maybe that's the best way to describe it, it is a timepiece. It is a piece that tells time. Basic queries, then, about dress watch or sports watch classification seem almost ridiculous. The Tread 2 chronograph, I should say, by their standards, is fairly restrained, and I'm a big fan of the Motown Nights models. I love the black, I love the blue, I love the white, I love the music, and I love the theme of that 50-piece limited edition. But the Tread 1 starts at a full boil. This one starts at 11 and goes to numbers that even Spinal Tap never conceived. Quickly probes the limit of sanity with the steampunk model, and the Star Wars. Finally, there is the clinically insane exoskeleton model. Once you've aligned your models with Jules Verne in the case of the steampunk, and well, Darth Vader, no explanation required, classification is futile. You could call these personal devices, consumer electronics, or even adult toys. All three apply, but these watches are cool, and I'm a big fan of what Devon is doing. The motor-driven time belt displays are visually distinctive and both visually and audibly loud. You can hear this watch from across a room over the din of speech, and I love that. Production is low at about 1,500 pieces yearly, so roughly on par with Moser. 2/3 are Tread 2s, 1/3 the flagship Tread 1, and there's a refreshing lack of pretense about the brand that I like and sorely miss when I'm dealing with traditional luxury brands, especially Swiss brands. They're not trying to ride the coattails of some astroturfed, reimagined, or reheated heritage dating back to the 18th century. These Devons are modern-day Americana for watch guys, and I embrace that. If you weren't alive to remember Elvis, tail fins, Joe DiMaggio, or Muhammad Ali at peak, get a Devon Tread. I can't remember any of the foregoing, therefore I am a Tread fan. Viewer wrist shots, jumping straight in. Your piece is on my pixels. Ibrahim A. and his brother, watching from Kuwait, snapped double Rolex while studying in Dublin, Ireland. Thank you for staying up and watching from the Middle East. Beat R watched last week's show and then found the Moser rotating bezel in Bucherer of Basel. Thanks for the real world in the wild shot of that piece. John T. of Manhattan, New York electrifies with his Omega Aquaterra Blue Wave dial and cuff. And Cineal Chu of YouTube, that's his handle on YouTube, showcases an exquisite French Pascal Coyon chronometre, a brand often mentioned on this show. Finally, we've got a wrist shot to match. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your watches on the box. And remember, link in the description. Sign up to join me at Watch Time LA from May 3rd to May 4th. Meet Carrie Voutilainen, meet Romain Gauthier. Watch the panel I'm going to moderate featuring independent watch brands, your questions and queries asked in real time, food, fun, friends, and guaranteed good times at the Hudson Loft in Old LA. But you got to be in it to have fun. You got to join by clicking that link and going straight to the registration page. I will see you in LA. Comment and subscribe, and remember, join Tim_Mosso on Instagram, where you can binge watch my all video Instagram of our models. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for staying up and getting up early. Time out, Tim out, and thank you for logging on.